because of
Yeah.
you.
All right. We are live. Good. Hello. I caught myself this time. I did not say good morning. I said hello. And welcome to Intercultural Spark. This is the show where we talk to micro entrepreneurs who are sparking change in the world with mission driven businesses and life projects. Once a month, we bring in a tech expert because we want to know, especially as small businesses, like what tech do we have to pay attention to? What do we really need to know if we're going to be in business for another like 10 or even 20 years? Like, what's important? Um, Today, so I'm your host, Deanna Schaas. I am actually a micro entrepreneur in real life. And today's guest is Don Zoufal. So I got to tell you, Don is like the guy you want to have around if you ever have a real life emergency, which could happen at any time, really. So, but seriously, so he has a master's in Homeland Security. He's a lawyer. He has a master's in public administration, and he's a U.S. Army colonel, retired. He's held top governmental positions in city government. I actually met him when we worked together at the Department of Aviation. He now currently consults with safety and security industry, but also with corporations or anyone who's looking for technology solutions to safety and security. Legal counsel for the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, and he's a lecturer at the University of Chicago. And I share all that because we're going to go deep with now that we know his background in safety and security. So I want to thank everyone who's joining us today and welcome to Intercultural Spark. So Don, usually, actually, I always do is I'm going to move me over so you're not surrounded by all my branding.
I'm happy to be surrounded by your branding.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, as a joke, I was actually just going to start playing the intro because usually I just say like one or two things about my guests. But so we've known each other for a long time, and I'm just reading like more and more. And I was like, holy smokes. So, I was just going to cut myself out. That was only page one. I could have kept going with
I was
all
going
of
to say
your.
it's almost 20 years, but you were 12 when we met.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I was 12. Thank you. The youngest director of promotions in the history of aviation. So, well, I'm really excited for you to be here today. So many questions. So I'm going to do one thing really quickly because we know we want to make sure we get to the interpretive aerobics
Mm-hmm.
fitness exercise that relates to you.
Yeah,
And
I'm
since
all about
I good. Well, and what I'm not all about, you're probably about like precision. I am so not. So I'm actually going to set an alarm. In 20 minutes, the alarm goes off just to make sure we stay on time. We can always go afterwards if we have more time, but that's going to make sure that we get everything we covered in the time that we have together. All right. We're going to start with, we said we're focusing on things for small business owners that they need to that they need to know for their business. My question for you is facial recognition. Let's start with that. Where is it? Like, how is it being used? And why might a small business owner need to know about facial recognition?
Well, interestingly, facial recognition it comes out of the commercial sector. The real entrepreneurs, the real people that are doing a lot with facial recognition, isn't the security industry. That's not where kind of all the money is. I mean, the money is in using facial recognition to help understand customer behavior or people that are interested or in your products or your
Oh,
services, kind of
interesting.
matching them back and forth. Now,
Huh.
security is sort of a later adopter of facial
Really?
recognition. Yeah, so
So, like, someone in a
some of the most
retail store might like take a look at people's expressions to see if they're having a good time or if they're happy. Are you saying something like that? So as opposed to facial recognition like, aha, that's Deanna, you're saying facial recognition of like emotions or
Well,
experience?
actually, I would say both. It's both.
Really?
So I want to know if you've been in my store before. because quite frankly, I can relate your behavior in my store to things you bought or things you were interested in. In the airport context, maybe I want to know if you've been to the Starbucks before and you like caramel lattes, and so I'm going to send you a. I'm going to send a. I'm going to relate my knowledge through facial recognition that you're the guy who buys the caramel lattes all the time, and I'm going to send you a coupon when you come when you walk down the concourse.
That
Uh,
does actually sound like remember Minority Report where Tom Cruise,
it's
but he had the different
there's a creepy well there's a that's the whole issue with this is there's to some extent there's a creepiness factor with it.
Mhm,
But the truth of the matter is that a lot of people will trade their privacy for that $1.50 off coupon on
mhm,
on the large latte. So
mhm,
that's and that's where kind of in the facial recognition area for law enforcement, for security, you want to look for people who are uh, for security, for example, in the private sector, looking for people who are frequent flyer shoplifters, right? So there are there are programs that are in place where they can identify the shoplifter. So if he comes back into the store, the security will keep an
mhm.
eye on that individual.
But now that's going to have to be people who were convicted, not necessarily someone who's a suspected shoplifter,
I
correct?
mean,
Because
it
mhm,
depends. It depends. I
mhm,
mean, private entities, private stores aren't bound by the same rules that government would be. I mean, from a government perspective, you couldn't do that. A good example is in the casinos, right? If you're a card counter or something like that, that's not a crime, but they don't keep card counters in the casinos. So casinos use facial recognition currently and facial recognition programs to identify individuals. There's an enterprise again. Go back to the private sector where they have really kind of worked with facial recognition, developed facial recognition, and really apply it. And facial
mhm.
recognition can be used in a lot of
Mhm.
different ways for a
So
lot of different
actually, here's a thought. Now I'm thinking like 'cause so much is done by Zoom right now. Do
things.
you think at some point, so let's say I'm having a Zoom, could you do facial recognition that does thought bubbles? I'm just imagining like you're having your conversation on Zoom
Well,
and you can start like reading someone's facial expression like they really hate this idea that I'm pitching them right now. Like
facial recognition, true facial recognition is about matching.
it is about matching. Okay.
It's an artificial intelligence program that matches, this face to
Mhm.
this face to a gallery of hundreds or thousands or
Mhm.
millions of other photographs, and says, and now again, there's a lot of misinformation about facial recognition. There are people who think that it's like a fingerprint match, right? Okay, the police are going to use facial recognition, so they take a picture of the guy at the scene of the crime, and then they match it to a gallery of photos. In most places, they only use
Mhm.
mugshot
Well,
photos.
if you watch it on the movies, on the movies, they're like, scanning everyone's face until they find the person. Um,
Sure, but they never really find the person. What they do is find somebody who's a fairly close match. And
mhm,
in most of the programs for facial recognition, there's like a probability score that that this
okay.
is a 90% or 95% or whatever. It's never 100%,
Mhm,
and no court would let you use it.
okay.
What police utilize it facial recognition for. Um, at least in large measure, is for things like is trying to round up some suspects, and then of course you're going to do a further
Mhm.
investigation. You'll
Well,
never be able
that's
to
what's hard is if
well,
someone is misidentified and I've read this in the news that as far as like that there's differences for people of color where it doesn't where facial recognition I heard wasn't as good or as accurate. So that sounds
there there are
like a
some
problem.
issues of bias by
Mhm,
skin type, just because for a couple of reasons, because the algorithms don't seem to work as well on those photographs, probably also because algorithms are all about training and about learning, and so the number of photos in the gallery that are used to train the AI is going to affect
mhm,
the ability of the artificial intelligence
sure.
AI to recognize things. But the point is you need to understand those biases. And again, it's not about saying you're the person who did it. It's not like a fingerprint where you find the fingerprint and you match it to the fingerprint and say, yeah, that guy was the guy at the
Sure.
scene of the crime. The courts are not going to permit that. The AI isn't sufficiently robust to be able to do that. But what it can do is and people always think about, well, it's going to incriminate the guilty, the innocent, right?
Sure.
You may get swept up in it, but it's also going to exculpate the innocent. It's going to it's going to say, no, this guy isn't the guy you're looking for. So
sure. Well, and it sounds like, because I want to pull it back to the business context, it also sounds like where people may see it more likely right now is that they're, a block away from the Starbucks and all of a sudden they're getting a text, or maybe they're just right in front of it. That stuff is happening right now where
that
people
stuff
are
is happening
getting
right now.
texts that are nearby. But that's also by phone and phone number, correct?
It can be. No, ultimately they have to have a way to match it up to these things. So a lot of these things are registration, where you register and you give your data.
And if you don't want to give your data, you can also then exclude yourself from it. It's so funny. We need to get on to our second question.
Sure. Okay.
No, I'm the one who's perpetuating, but I'm like, wait, what do they know? Do they know my shoe size?
Well, they know a lot. They know a lot about you. They know a lot about you. And as I said, it's been used in the commercial sector because they find it very effective. And as I said, if people use it, you say, oh, well, it's really creepy, except that, a lot of people are using the biometrics, right, the facial recognition to open their cell phones or for other kind of devices. So it also provides a level of security against fraud and theft that people are looking for. So it's a balancing, and what you really need to have at the end of the day is good governance over how you're using that information, how you're using that data, and making sure that you're only using it for the purposes that you say you're taking it for.
Well, and in some cases, I think with small businesses, I was just having a conversation with my son this morning with the economy, with what we're expecting potentially with the economy. And we were talking about how can small businesses protect themselves. And one of the things was, well, shop at other small businesses. So one way to protect yourself from being, totally surveilled or facial recognition is go to your local coffee shop, which might not be using facial recognition. So, all right. How about,
I didn't want to say that Starbucks was using facial recognition. I don't want to come back and have a beef with me. So
you heard it here first, people. You heard it here first.
Using facial recognition. I don't have any reason to think they're using facial recognition. So I don't want anyone to be suggesting that, I got to go to my local coffee shop rather than Starbucks because I don't want to be suspicious.
That was just me giving a plug for micro entrepreneurs.
Well,
for the record, Don Zoufal did not say that Starbucks is surveilling you. No. Okay. How about cybersecurity and hackers? So I understand that with the conflict going on, that there's been an increase in particularly like hackers from Russia that are trying to break into systems here. I sometimes think like, well, I'm not part of a big network. Like, how would I even be a victim of that? But is that not good thinking? Or
cybersecurity is a concern for everyone, for businesses large and small. There are state actors. My suspicion is that my small business or your small business probably are not going to be largely going to be the target of some sort of state-sponsored cyber initiative. But there are more than enough cyber criminals out there that are busy looking to try to penetrate businesses for a whole host of things. I mean, if your small business uses connected devices to take credit card information, right? You're a potential source for a cyber thief, right? Because if they can get into your system and they can get the credit card information and they can get the credit card data, they can utilize that then to attack your customers.
Question, because then sometimes people say, okay, so I'm not going to store it locally. I mean, that rarely happens, but then people think, oh, I'll store it on the cloud, but it feels like you're more vulnerable if you're storing all your information on the cloud. How many services say we'll store all of your passwords for you, through some sort of cloud-based program, but then they get hacked?
Well, the bigger ones I don't think really do, and that's always a debate. That's a debate for small businesses. That's a debate meant for government that they're having now. Do we want to do on premise, or do we want to put our data in the cloud? Um,
Mhm.
Gee, who do you think has got better security? The city of Chicago or AWS? My guess is it's going to be
Mhm.
AWS.
And what's AWS?
uh, Amazon Web Services, right?
Oh, okay.
One of the big cloud providers. So
Although, okay, see, I told when I invited Don on the show, I'm like, all right, you're going to get all my conspiracy theory stuff. So I know that Amazon's doing, but wasn't like the former deputy of security now like on the board of Amazon? So no, I look at that and I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah,
well,
I mean, you have to trust Amazon though, and
well,
uh,
you've got to trust. Whether you
wait,
put your stuff
please,
in
if
an
anyone
Amazon.
watching has conspiracy theories of people you don't trust, put those in the comments.
What
Don't leave me hanging here.
wherever you put it, you're going to have to trust the individual. The question is, are you better off with um, the amount of resources that
Mhm.
Amazon can devote to
Or someone who's actually really focused on
or
that as opposed
or
to
or,
you
or
where it's
Microsoft
yeah.
and the Azure cloud,
Mhm.
whatever cloud provider you go with. I mean, and again, the problem with with the cloud, or the issue with the cloud, is you don't really have very much control necessarily over the terms of your agreement with the cloud provider. So,
Mhm.
if something happens to your data, you lose your data, you're going to have signed an agreement with them up front that's going to
Oh,
lay
that
out.
says if we lose your data, sorry.
Well, they're not going to adjust their they're
Uh,
not going to adjust their terms of service for you.
sure.
So I mean, it's one of those things, like, like the privacy agreements that you have, or the agreements you have for using all these different services,
Yeah.
that you know
I never trust them. I'm with Brianna though. Okay, Brianna, I know someone. Oh, I thought you said you were the person, Brianna. Thank you for watching. And if anyone's watching
yeah,
live, please do say hello and share your conspiracy theories or actual questions
okay.
for Don. I know someone who believes that all birds in the country have cameras attached to them that Big Brother watches everyone through. Do you know anything? Okay, actually, this is interesting because so Don teaches okay, you teach a course on technology for Homeland Security in the master's program at the University of Chicago. Is there a thing where birds have cameras and they're watching us? Go.
Only the blackbirds. No birds. No. There can be, there are devices. There are kind of aerial surveillance platforms, small ones.
Are they like drones? And I
They're
assume you're
drones. Yeah,
talking
they're
like
drones. Well,
blackbirds, jaybirds,
most all drones.
bluebirds.
That's what most all people use their drones for. The hobbyists. They're out there flying around, and they're filming stuff.
Mm.
'Cause
But
they have.
those are the hobbyists. Is the guy okay? I knew I would do this. You can just be like, "This is you tricked me." Wait, switch and bait. You brought me on the show to help small businesses, and now I want to know if the government is using drones to watch us.
Um, in large measure, not. In a lot of states, for example, in the state of Illinois, there's an
Yeah.
anti-drone statute that prohibits law enforcement
Oh,
from
right.
utilizing
Mhm,
drones
mhm,
for any kind of law enforcement related
mhm.
service. They're incredibly useful, though. I mean, set aside the issue of finding marijuana fields, which now that's legalized, who really cares?
Sure.
Um, but and I don't understand why we say it's okay if you find the marijuana field using a helicopter, but not if you use a drone. That's not a
Sure, sure,
issue that
sure.
makes any sense to me.
Mhm.
But
Well, you work on that though. You do a lot with ethics and policy. That
sure.
feels like an outdated policy where the tech changed, but then the laws didn't.
Well, actually, what happened was that the tech, at least in Illinois, the tech adapted, and people had these visions that they were going to be flooded with cameras on birds or other kind of cameras, or that
Mhm.
the police were going to have these hordes of drones and be able to surveil the countryside, and so they passed statutes that prohibited. Um, Government from utilizing drones for without a warrant, at least in terms of
Okay.
criminal enforcement.
Mhm.
So uh, again, but nonsense. My privacy interest doesn't change whether I'm being surveilled by a camera from a drone or a camera from a helicopter. Really, it's
Right.
has the
It's
same
still
effect
right.
on my
For sure.
privacy. But I guess people felt that drones would be so easy to proliferate and utilize that.
Well, it feels like they can get into smaller spaces or
Well,
closer or
I
things
don't
like
think it's so
that.
much that because quite frankly, a camera platform, depends on the kind of camera that you're having. You can have a whole a much more powerful camera on a helicopter or even a fixed wing aircraft.
Interesting.
It's more a question of I think it's
Okay.
more a question of the cost that
Hmm.
people felt that drones kind of democratized the technology so that more people could
Hmm.
utilize. Um, but and drones are they're a problem for. They're a huge they have huge benefits and they also cause huge problems. Some of the people, some folks don't think about the um, uh, some of the difficulties drones can cause even for small businesses. You know, uh, business. Trying to think of the word. Not surveillance is not the word, but where individuals, where competitors are utilizing. You have a small truck,
Oh, right.
have
Like
certain
sort of like
processes for
corporate,
how you do
right.
things, and so
Sure.
like espionage. That was the
Okay.
word I was searching for. Commercial espionage, right? So I want to
Hmm.
see how my competitor does this, that, and the other, or so I can go hire a drone and just fly it over
Hmm.
his truck
Wow.
yard and find and figure out his processes. So um, trying to deal with the privacy issues around drones is it's a very it's one of those wicked problems. It's
Hmm.
interesting. There's a law enforcement component to it. There's a and there are other components to it as well. So um,
So if somebody wanted to, so just kind of like a summary, because there's so many of these things that really feels like it's just out in the world. We don't necessarily have control over. For a small business,
mhm.
are there a couple key things that you would say that small businesses should be paying attention to that have scaled to a dollar amount where small businesses can afford it?
Well, I think, as I said, I think camera technology certainly is something that all businesses should be thinking about. Homeowners should be thinking about it. The costs of those surveillance systems have come down. So in terms of general security and understanding what's happening, or from a security perspective, what's happening in the area around your business is important. I
Hmm.
mean, you can save money, for example, on clearing alarms, right? You may have burglar alarms on your building or your structure. If you relate those to a camera system, right, you can resolve those alarms, and you figure out, oh no, it was
Hmm.
the neighbor's cat who jumped through the window, or
Gotcha.
whatever. So from a security perspective, they have value. Again,
Hmm.
from a commercial perspective, take the facial recognition piece
Hmm.
out of it. I want to know how many people come by my window of my shop.
Hmm.
So it's kind of the people counting function. I want to know. I put a new uh, demonstration up in my showcase, right? And so now I want to see how many people stop and look. You can get a camera. You can
Oh,
get cameras
interesting.
with simple analytics that and that's what a lot of the commercial use is. You can map. Once you have the cameras, you can kind of map the hot spots of where people are going in your shop, what people are doing. So
Oh,
even
and then that makes
even
a
for a
actually
small business
that
owner, even
because
for a
then you
small
can
business
put the
owner, that
products
can
that
help.
they're gonna buy in those
Sure,
spots.
right,
All right,
sure.
Don, we're gonna take a quick break. I know you were so excited and
Uh,
waiting for this. My
yes.
alarm has gone off, so we are going to do our flash exercise.
Okay.
So our flash exercise is 'cause I'm also a certified aerobics instructor, and so I love to do the interpretive exercise of the week. You have something very special today because today's exercise comes with music. There's a concert.
Perfect.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my screen big for just a second and show the exercise. Always something you could do at your desk. So I invite
Mhm.
everyone watching to do it as well, and then I'll bring you back to do it with me. So this exercise you should always, your mom was right. You should sit up straight. All my exercises start with sitting up straight. So, this is a pectoral and a back exercise. So, what you're
Okay.
doing is bring your arms, oops, so weird on the camera. Okay. Bring your arms even with shoulder height, and you're going to bring that arm in front to squeeze your pectoral. So, it goes front, pec, and then bring it back. So it goes front all the way back, front and back. So you squeeze your pectoral and then squeeze your rhomboids as you go to the back, one arm at a time. Don, I'm going to bring you back.
Oh,
Why don't you? Okay, so try that with me. So right here, so it comes front and back and front and back. You got it. Perfect. So do 10 reps right at your seat.
What?
Do you know why I picked that? You got it. That's perfect.
Front, back, yeah, because I'm wearing.
Yeah, so you can feel your shoulder blades kind of crack an egg behind
Yeah, look at how my shoulders are puffing up.
Yeah, I hope that's your jacket. Otherwise, drop your shoulders down because you want to have. I was so bummed when big shoulder pads went out of
my shoulders
in the 80s. Look, Don, you're stronger already.
Exactly, I'm like Popeye.
All right, can you guess why I picked that exercise for you and this episode?
Yeah, because I needed to build my upper body.
That was not it. You are perfect.
To match the size of my lower body.
There you go. You are perfect just the way you are. So this is okay. So I'm going to change my hand position when I do this. And this is where my song comes in. Okay. So no, it's so if you do it with your fingers like this, ready? I always feel like somebody's watching me. So.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to do that part.
You got the full big thing with the song. All right, let's see. We have one more question coming here. This exercise, Brianna says, this exercise makes me think of having a strong security system in front of you, blocking the viruses and attacks and things.
Having a strong defense is that's actually really true, though. Having a strong defense there are lots of tools out there. There are lots of, but the truth of the matter is a great portion of the defense against cybersecurity is about the individual users. It's not so much about the machines. It's people that go on and fall for a phishing attack. They click on a link. They download some malicious software. So making sure that you have your antiviruses in place, making sure that you buy those systems is all great, but at the end of the day, a lot of the problem and a lot of the way to solve the problem is to address the human factor. Training is really important.
You bring up an important note just as we're closing out for small businesses. It actually would be a great idea, even if you have micro entrepreneurs are usually less than 10 employees. So it's not like there's this huge network, but any one of those employees could link on something, could click on something that could bring down the whole system. So even just having some sort of policy that says don't click on links from people you don't know, or things that warn people about maybe what not to click on certain websites that I think some companies may even block different kinds of websites, so that those are protocols you can put in place, even with a small number of employees, to make sure that your system
you should. I mean, if you're operating your system, you should talk to an IT professional. And there are some basic courses out there, some basic tools, and again, it's a target-rich environment, so you don't have to make your defenses perfect. You just have to make your defenses better than the guy next to you. It's like the old story about the bear. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the guy running next to you.
That's great. Well done. Thank you so much for this. Oh, and you have to be faster than the guy next to you, and you should have an IT person.
Exactly.
Like have a person. And on that note, but an IT person who runs slower than you. But with the IT person, what I would say is that's actually not that hard. Sometimes you'll think, oh, if I have an IT person, it's like I need to have a big company. I know I have Brad, like Bruce, if anything happens on my end, his last name, Bruce Bradley, like I just call Bruce and I know he's going to know what to do. Even if we're just networking, honestly, like the computers in our house, everyone's got like 8 computers in their house now, just because of doing so much from home. So it is a good idea to have a relationship with somebody so that you do have someone to call like immediately if something happens, for sure. So thank you
very much for having
so much. God, I didn't even get into all my other like science fiction movies of We'll have to do that offline. We'll have to go for a beer and talk about that.
That sounds great to me.
So, well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is Intercultural Spark. Next week, we have Rachel Gadsden, who she's actually going along with More Tech, creating an app that actually is bringing together Black artists and creators and empowering them to be able to express and grow their art. So thank you for joining us on Intercultural Spark. Thank you so much, Don, and we'll see everyone next week.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.